Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Soprano and I am a career consultant at the UConn Center for Career Development. Today I will be presenting on the interview. So let's talk about what you'll learn during today's presentation. First, we're going to cover some preparation tips on how to get ready for an upcoming interview. We will also review common interview questions, including tell me about yourself, strengths and weaknesses, as well as behavioral questions. And we'll also provide you with some tips for overall success during an interview. Before we get into our overview, I want to talk briefly about becoming career ready, what career competencies are, and what specific competencies this presentation and utilizing the Center for Career Development will help develop. Becoming career ready comes from the National Association of Colleges and Employers Foundation of Career Readiness, which is having the ability to demonstrate core competencies that broadly prepare the college educated for success in the workplace and lifelong career management. In simpler terms, becoming career ready is the development and articulation of these 8 competencies that have been identified by employers as essential for career success. We have some great resources on our website, career.uconn.edu, to help you identify your competency levels and ways to further develop them. Choosing to learn about interviewing is an excellent way to further build your career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, and professionalism competencies. Additionally, we can assist you in finding many ways to enhance and how to talk about each of these competencies during your time at UConn. And now on to interviewing. First, let's go over how to prepare for an interview. Think of the interview as a presentation. The more familiar you are with the material that you are presenting ahead of time, the more confident and natural you will come across. Try performing a self-assessment. Having a clear picture of your skills, interests, and values as they relate to the position or program can really help articulate your qualifications when in an interview. Also, be sure to look closely at your past experiences and be ready to talk about them in detail. This will help the interviewer get a better understanding of your performance in their job based on past performances in previous jobs. Also, research the company or program. You can do this by visiting the company or program's website and social media for information about their goals, history, competitors, culture, and current initiatives. You can also connect with faculty, staff, other students, and alumni who are currently or were previously involved with that organization for input on relevant information. Lastly, consider reviewing the position or program description to make sure you have a full understanding of potential responsibilities and requirements or qualifications of an ideal candidate. You'll also want to prepare questions to ask during the interview. Based on your research, try to prepare at least 3 to 5 questions that will get you a better feel for whether or not the program is a right fit for you and to show you did your research ahead of time. Lastly, make sure you practice for your interview. Review the program or position description to anticipate what types of questions you may be asked. You can utilize our online resource, Big Interview, for additional practice. Ask a friend or family member to help you practice or practice in front of a mirror. You can also sign up for a practice interview at the Center for Career Development to help mimic what a real interview situation might look like. Planning ahead is always an important step in the interview process. In fact, it's not all that different from how you plan ahead in your academics. Think about what you do to study for an exam, for example. What strategies do you use to make sure you are prepared? To help you prepare for the interview, consider taking the following steps the night before and the day of. First, review directions to the interview site in advance and make sure you leave enough time to get there. If possible, do a dry run ahead of time in case you encounter any unexpected delays. Next, lay out clothes and get a good night's sleep. Make sure your outfit is ready to go the night before and do any ironing if necessary. Employers have given us feedback that they can tell when a student is sluggish and tired in an interview, and this reflects negatively upon the student. Get lots of sleep the night before so that you are alert and ready to answer questions. This will also show the interviewer that you made the interview a priority. The day of, try to arrive 5 to 10 minutes early to your interview. You don't want to get there any earlier because it could put extra stress on the employer to begin earlier, and anything less is unprofessional. Next, bring only a padfolio, copies of your resume, and a small briefcase or bag. A padfolio can be used to hold extra copies of your resume, cover letter, business cards, or any other documents required for your interview. You can purchase one of these at the bookstore or any office supply store. The notepad in your portfolio can be used to prepare notes that serve as reminders of the talking points you want to make during the interview, as well as the questions you want to ask near the end of your interview. It can also be used to take notes throughout the interview, which will help you remember specific details when writing your thank you notes after the interview is over. Remember to remain engaged in conversation and keep eye contact with the interviewers while taking notes. Review your talking points and questions for the interviewer while you are waiting to be called for the interview. This will help prevent you from drawing a blank when responding to questions or when it's your turn to ask some questions. The more comfortable you are with these, the better. However, make sure you don't sound too rehearsed either. Bring only a small briefcase or bag because you don't want to have to carry too many things around. Also, if your hands are occupied with too many items, that could result in awkward handshakes. Make a strong impression. Your interview starts the minute you arrive at your destination. This could mean stepping out of your car in a parking lot or arriving at an airport or train station, so your behavior should reflect that. Be professional from the start. Be on for the whole time. Assume the hiring manager or committee will ask everyone from the security guard or receptionist to the interviewer themselves about their opinion of you. Next, we'll go over some common interview questions. The most common categories of interview questions are traditional, behavioral, and case. Depending on your industry, you may also be asked some very industry or company-specific questions, but you should be prepared for these common questions as well. Traditional questions are asked in all industries and usually relate to your personality, background, and values. The interviewer uses traditional questions to get to know you better as a person and as a candidate. Behavioral questions are used to find out what type of behavior you have used to handle past experiences, because that can be a predictor of how you will handle similar situations in the future. Case questions are used to assess your analytical skills and approach to problem solving by giving you a scenario or problem to solve. When responding to a case situation, it's important to demonstrate your thought process. The actual answer is not as important as the thought process you use to come to it and your reasoning that supports it. One of the most common examples of a traditional question is tell me about yourself. How do you think you would answer this question, and what do you think should be included? When answering this question, you want to consider using a unique opening. Don't say, "Hi, my name is Kristen, and I'm a junior at UConn studying communication," because everybody else will say the same exact thing. Explain a little bit about who you are, why you're interested in the opportunity, and how you first knew the field was a good fit for you. Choose an aspect of your professional identity that makes you stand out and talk about it. How does your class experience connect to this position or program? What are you currently involved with that may relate? Talk about your relevant experiences, including internships, on-campus involvement, academic projects, volunteer experiences, and jobs where you gained these relevant skills. Try to match these skills with the opportunity you're interviewing for. Also, remember to talk about your future plans. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years, and how does this opportunity help you get there? Explain how this position or program is the next logical step in your career path. Avoid talking about hobbies or interests unless relevant to the position. Negatives about past experiences should not be discussed, and avoid any lies. Be genuine and natural, not robotic, and summarize key points of your resume rather than repeating it. Also, try to keep your answer to about 2 minutes in length. When talking about your strengths, be sure to choose a skill that is relevant to the position and be ready with examples of how you have used that skill in the past. Show the employer you have the skill rather than just telling them. Avoid general phrases and traits like hardworking and instead focus on transferable skills like communication and teamwork. When discussing weaknesses, try to choose a skill or quality that is not completely necessary for the job, but is also not so unrelated that it seems irrelevant. The most important component of your answer to a question about weaknesses is including something about how you're currently or planning to improve in that area rather than the weakness itself. These are some other examples of common traditional interview questions. It's important to make sure that you are clear in your responses and that you have done your research when answering any type of traditional question. Be ready to talk about your own accomplishments and always have something ready at the end in case the interviewer asks, "Is there anything else I should know about you that we haven't already discussed?" Don't let this great opportunity to talk more about your experience go by without taking advantage of it. As we discussed before, behavioral questions are asked in an interview to get a better understanding of how your past actions and reactions to certain situations will determine your future actions and reactions to similar situations. Behavioral questions usually start with one of the phrases listed on the slide. Tell me about a time when. Give me an example of. Describe a moment when. Interviewers are looking for you to tell a story when you hear these prompts. The STAR method outlines the 5 most important parts of a strong answer to a behavioral question. The situation. Give the interviewer a brief overview of the situation. This will provide context so the interviewer understands what setting you are talking about, what position you were in, and when this occurred. The task. Describe the task or project for which you had responsibility for. Use brief details. Next, the action. Explain the action steps you took to approach the situation. This will be the bulk of your response. Be sure to include specific actions you took to solve the problem using I statements and not we statements. The result. Don't forget to include the outcome. This ties the answer together and provides the interviewer with a thorough explanation of your skills and abilities with a positive resolution to the problem or task at hand. Finally, relate. Explain how this example or the actions you've outlined relate to the position or industry. Here are some other common examples of behavioral interview questions. Behavioral interview questions might be catered a little bit to your industry so the interviewers can get a better understanding of the skills and experiences that directly correlate with that particular program or position. When answering these questions, remember to always use the STAR method. It's a good idea to prepare 5 to 7 STAR type situations you faced throughout your college experience so that you have them ready to go for the interview. You want to make sure you use a variety of different experiences to really highlight your involvement and skills. More and more employers are asking about, tell me a time when you failed. Be sure to use the STAR method and highlight what you learned from the failure and how that makes you better now. It's important to remember that when preparing to talk about the positives, you also remember to talk about the not so great experiences to show how much you've grown and developed. While behavioral-based questions are meant to assess your actions, case-based questions are meant to assess your ability to solve problems. There are 3 main types of case questions. First is business. These questions may include financial and/or economic analysis and at times require technical math or additional research. Second is logic. Logic questions may require you to provide a conclusion in a short amount of time with limited to no resources using only your common sense. Lastly, there's brain teasers. These may require you to provide abstract estimates or explanations. When answering case-based questions, you will always want to explain your thought process similar to the way you were told to show your work in early math classes. This is how interviewers can assess your critical thinking skills and resourcefulness. Occasionally, you will be provided with resources and materials to help you research and form a conclusion. However, this will not always be the case. Be sure to take advantage of such resources if they are made available to you. Also, ask clarifying questions. Listen carefully to the prompt you've been given and make sure you understand the objective. Be sure to ask any appropriate questions needed to make sure you fully understand the task provided in order to develop the best solution possible. Lastly, there may not always be an answer. Case-based questions are not necessarily always about finding a correct answer, more so demonstrating your ability to research and present your reasoning. This slide demonstrates some sample questions that you might be asked in case-based interviews. For a logic question, you might be asked something similar to, how many traffic lights are in New York City? For business questions, you might ask something similar to, the global market for wireless headphones is growing at a rate of 4% a year, yet your client, Earbuds Inc., is seeing a steady decline in sales. The client has asked you to identify why their sales are declining and develop a proposal to make them competitive in the marketplace. Lastly, an example of a brain teaser question might look something like, in the Chicago subway system, there are 2 escalators for going up, but only 1 for going down to the subway. Why? Next, we're going to review some tips to succeed in an interview. There's more to a successful interview than just the responses you provide to questions. Your nonverbal and verbal cues in an interview also play a large part in it as well. For nonverbal cues, be sure to maintain good eye contact with the interviewers. Maintaining eye contact about 70% of the time is recommended. Also, be sure to sit up straight and use hand gestures intentionally. Beware of fidgeting or swiveling in your chair or going through any other distracted movements. Also, be sure to maintain professionalism even if the interviewer assumes a more casual demeanor. Lastly, remember to smile. For your verbal cues, use formal grammar and avoid colloquial phrases such as you guys. Also, try to avoid using filler words like yeah, like, and you know. Silence is okay. Use it when you need to, if you need a quick moment to think or to allow the interviewer to finish jotting down their notes after you provide a response. Be sure to keep your interviews to an appropriate length. Aim for about 1 to 1.5 minutes per response. Also, avoid skipping questions or asking the interviewers to repeat questions. This may make it sound like you weren't listening. Ask them to rephrase instead. At the end of the interview, you will most likely be provided an opportunity to ask any questions you have about the position or company. Remember, an interview is a two-way street. You are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you to determine an equal fit. Earlier in this presentation, we discussed coming up with 3 to 5 questions as part of the interview preparation process. This is the minimum amount of questions you should have in mind before attending your interview. However, sometimes you'll find the interviewer will answer some of your questions throughout the interview. This is why we suggest creating a few extra questions beyond the original 3 to 5 so that you have at least 3 questions to ask at the end of the interview. Consider asking questions that help you get a better understanding of the position, company or program, or developmental opportunities. You can also ask about next steps in the process, or even tailored questions to the interviewers themselves. If you know who you'll be meeting with ahead of time, look up their bio on the company website if they have one, or research them on LinkedIn. Asking them questions about their experiences with the company or their career path can help forge great connections and be very insightful. Avoid asking questions that you could easily find out about on the web or questions that are more appropriate to be discussed or negotiated at the time of offer, like salary, work hours and location, or time off. Earlier in this presentation, we spoke to the importance of making a positive first impression. but being sure to leave a positive last impression is also very important. If it's a good idea to be on from the moment you arrive at your interview destination, you will also not want to be off until you've returned home. At the conclusion of your interview, be sure to reiterate your interest in the position and exit appropriately. This could mean completely shutting down your camera and microphone in a virtual interview, as well as completely signing out of the interview platform, or even pushing in your chair during an in-person interview and thanking everyone you've interacted with for their assistance. This includes security guards, receptionists, or anyone else you may have had contact with. You should assume that all these individuals will provide feedback to the interviewers even after the interview itself has ended. Do not leave behind garbage in the physical meeting room or linger in the virtual meeting room waiting for the interview panel to sign off first. You should avoid relaxing your physical and/or virtual appearance upon exiting the interview as well. This includes removing your jacket, loosening your tie, or turning off your camera light. You should also refrain from being quick to take out your phone, check messages or emails, or start performing other tasks, as this may show a lack of interest in the company or program to anyone who may still be watching. After the interview, be sure to collect contact information for each person you met with. Asking for business cards is a great way to do this. You might have had multiple interviews during the day and want to make sure you can keep everyone straight so that you can thank them appropriately. Following up is vital, as this can be a deal breaker if you don't. Interviewers may see 20 candidates in one day, and you want to be sure they remember you. To help do this, send an email within 24 hours after the interview. You can also follow up with a handwritten note if desired. Be sure those thank you notes reference something discussed in the interview. Also, remember to reiterate your interest in the position or company, and thank the interviewer for their time. A sample thank you note can be found in the interview preparation guidebook on our website, career.uconn.edu. Also, if you receive an offer, make sure to show interest, but don't accept right away. We encourage you to call the Center for Career Development and schedule an appointment with a career coach to talk about how to accept or decline an offer appropriately. Now that we've shared some best practices for preparing for a successful interview, there are some action steps we recommend you taking. For starters, try scheduling a practice interview with the Center for Career Development. You could also try out Big Interview to practice using virtual interviewing software. Lastly, you can also review our interviewing supplements and guidebook on career.uconn.edu. Practice interviews at the Center for Career Development are a great way to practice your interviewing techniques. During a practice interview, you will meet with a member of the Career Center team and will go through a brief simulated interview in which you will have an opportunity to practice answering traditional and behavioral questions. The Career Center staff member will then provide tailored feedback based on the best practices shared during this presentation. Practice interview appointments typically last about 45 minutes, and you can schedule them at any time by logging into your Handshake account. We recommend scheduling these appointments a few days to a week in advance as spots fill up quickly. You do not need to have an upcoming interview scheduled to participate in a practice interview appointment. You can schedule one at any time. You can also use our online resource, Big Interview, to learn about other interviewing best practices as well as practice your interviewing skills from the comfort of your own location. Whether you're interviewing for a job or graduate school, Big Interview can be a great tool to help you practice delivering the best interview responses possible. View the student guide for more information on navigating the Big Interview platform. You can also sign up to meet with a career coach on our website, and you can reach out to us with any questions you have at 860-486-3013 or by email at career@uconn.edu. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the Center for Career Development soon.